Hi, my name's Mark Woodgate. I'm Managing Director of Davis Standard Limited in the UK. I've worked for Davis Standard companies for about 30 years, or will have in June 2024. This video is going to be about the DS Brookes company. I'm talking about extrusion barrel grades, extrusion screws, and with some cross references to other products. So firstly, I needed to tell you a little bit about the company and a brief overview of what it did at the time and what its products were. So probably your first question what's DS Brookes? Well, it's one of our heritage brands. There's a number of companies that were purchased by Davis Standard between 1998 and 2000, which included companies like Beton Machinery, Flotair, Francis Shaw Plastics and Cable Technique, all of whom were plastics machinery producers, unlike Brookes, which produced barrels and screws in the main. So the background behind DS Brookes is it was purchased as Brookes of Albury, which was in receivership by the Davis Standard Group in about 2000. It's long been established as a bimetallic barrel manufacturer since about 1960, originally being an Exaloy license, and subsequently marketed its own products under the name of Brookes. It was a principal supplier to Davis Standard, and therefore, when it went into receivership, it was seen to be, at the time, a key acquisition. So DS Brookes was the only UK manufacturer of bimetallic barrels for both injection moulding and extrusion. It also made extrusion and injection single flight screws and some barrier designs. So let's talk about some of DS Brookes' primary products. Mainly, the company produced bimetallic extrusion barrels from 90mm to 550mm in diameter, up to 5.7 meters long in one piece or 7.7 meters as a two-piece construction. The company also had the capability to make nitrided screws to 355mm diameter and could provide cold malloy and stellite tip screws to similar diameters. It also made bimetallic extruder screws, but this was discontinued due to machinery safety concerns. It had a resleeving service for worn injection moulding and extrusion barrels as well. Its principal competitors were Exaloy, Burnix, Ryloy, Tolaris Pena, Kleinvia, Wexco Corporation, and some emerging companies from Asia. Unfortunately for Brookes, a lot of these were based in Europe, so competition and pricing was intense. So in the next few slides, I'm hoping to talk about some of the bimetallic grades that Brookes had and their relationship to the materials that they processed and to our competitors' grades, and in significance, the Exaloy grades, which we probably all can relate to. So let's talk about the most common bimetallic barrel grade, DS1000, or as it was known previously, Brookes 100. So this is an iron-based alloy containing nickel, chromium and boron. It is the most common of all bimetallic barrels and found in 90% of applications. It's a centrifugally cast alloy, which is cast into a machined steel shell. It has high abrasion resistance, but little to no corrosion resistance, but can process the majority of plastics in operation today. Has a hardness rating of 58 to 64 Rockwell C. So let's talk a little bit about the DS2000 barrel grade. It had no equivalent Brookes alternative, as it was developed during the time in which we owned the business. So a very complex hyper-eutectic white iron-based alloy, again centrifugally cast into a machined steel shell. It had a higher abrasion resistance and some moderate corrosion resistance, although that was limited. However, it was developed to process the majority of plastics, and with those up to about 30% abrasive filler, Had a Rockwell hardness rating of 60 to 64. Then we come to the DS 6000 barrel grade, or Brookes 600. It was a nickel-based alloy, used in principle for corrosive materials. Again, centrifugally cast, pretty good with fluorocarbons, although it was quite soft, 48 to 54 Rockwell, so invariably didn't last that long. Now we can turn our attention to the DS 8000 barrel grade. There was no equivalent Brookes alternative. It was developed again during our time when we owned the business. So it's a nickel cobalt alloy, it says, with complex carbides in suspension, predominantly tungsten carbide to give it wear resistance. So it took all the corrosion resistant elements from the DS 6000 grade and impregnated that with tungsten carbide to give it the ultimate in wear resistance. Again, a centrifugally cast alloy and a hardest rating 60 to 64 Rockwell C. So DS 9000, which was principally for screws, or Brookes 900, is a thermal spray coating for screws. Very good wear and corrosion resistance. Again, one of the best for handling active corrosives. We discontinued it due to health and safety issues with the equipment on site at the old Brookes Oldbury plant, and this was never transferred to DS Brookes, and therefore the product was dropped. It had a hardness rating of about 62 plus Rockwell. We had issues with the coating coming off as well, and this is the sort of thing that you will see people like Extreme Coatings Florida will produce a similar material. So it's virtually a spray-on tungsten carbide. So the next slide is an alloy grade comparison against Xaloy, and the reason that I chose Xaloy was because that it was the original license from Brookes itself, so the grades match quite nicely. So I'd let you just have a browse up on that. I'm not going to talk about it because it's just me repeating a load of numbers, but you can see in the product numbers there are similarities. So the next slide looks at simple screw and barrel selection. We've tried to take the pain out of it by developing a screw and cylinder compatibility chart. And if you haven't got one, just email us at the address below and we'll make you have a copy. Pretty easy to use. You look up the processed resin, check for the filler and additive if there is one, and the chart will provide you with the correct grade selection. Little tip, just thinking about all the hardness values that you've got in the background there. Remember, in processing plastics, wear will always take place, it will always be present. So make the barrel harder than the screw because it's easier to replace. You can probably refurbish a screw 2 or 3 times to every barrel change. So just something to bear in mind. So here is an extract from the compatibility chart for cylinders and screws. As you can see, we're looking at polycarbonate here, and if we would had a glass filler, it would recommend a DS 8000 barrel, and recommends a encapsulated screw as well. So it's quite simple to use, and as I think you can see, just by working across it, you can easily select the correct grade and the correct screw finish for your application. So I suppose the question now is, what happened to DS Brookes? Well, from the purchase of the business in 2000, the orders were mainly intercompany, and the majority of other OEMs chose to buy their products from suppliers didn't like the fact that we were owned by a competitor. Simple as that, I suppose. The business was therefore loss-making and had been for some time, and we were unable to attract enough third-party business to support its overheads. By about 2010, DSLLC removed its support for the business and brokered a supply agreement with Exaloy. So we closed the business at the end of 2010, with the remnants of the business moving later that year to what is now David Standard Limited. Some of the furnaces went to Exaloy in Asia, and I understand that they are still working up to 2023. But that was it. We stopped making bimetallic barrels. It was an interesting period in time and a bit of a journey, and I've hoped you enjoyed this short video, and thanks for listening. Cheers, bye.